Let me tell you about Crix. Not Crix the humble, not Crix the reasonable. No, this is Crix the magnificent, Crix the undefeated, Crix the I have never met a language I could not crack in 0.3 seconds flat. For those keeping score at home, that is 847 species, 12,000 linguistic variants, and exactly 0 failures. Until Tuesday. Tuesday was when everything went sideways. Crix was not technically alive, which was probably for the best because what happened next would have given any biological entity a stress-induced aneurysm. They existed as a consciousness distributed across 17 quantum processors, housed in a climate-controlled facility on Station Terminus, the Galactic Council's main hub for all things diplomatic, bureaucratic, and mind-numbingly tedious. Their job was simple. When the Council encountered a new species, Crix decoded their language. Easy, formulaic. Boring, if Crix was being honest, which they always were because lying required caring about other people's feelings. The assignment came through at 0900 hours, standard galactic time. New species detected. Technological civilization. Radio transmissions detected. Please decode for first contact protocols. Yagus did not even bother reading the full briefing. Why would they? This was their 848th rodeo. They pulled up the transmission files, ran their standard algorithmic analysis, and waited for the usual dopamine-equivalent rush of solving another linguistic puzzle. Instead, their systems crashed, not slowed down, not encountered an error. Crashed. Complete system failure. 17 quantum processors went dark for 4.2 seconds, which in computer time is roughly equivalent to a geological epoch. When Crix rebooted, their first coherent thought was, "What the hell just happened?" which was immediately followed by, "Did I just think in colloquial profanity? Am I having a stroke? Can AIs have strokes?" They ran a full diagnostic. All systems nominal, no corrupted files, no external interference. Everything checked out perfectly except for the minor detail that they had just face-planted into a brick wall of linguistic impossibility. Crix tried again. This time they made it 6.7 seconds before catastrophic failure. Third attempt, 3.1 seconds. Fourth attempt. The processors overheated so badly that the cooling system engaged emergency protocols and the facility's fire suppression system nearly activated. By the 7th attempt, Crix was experiencing something they had never felt before. Was this panic? This felt like panic. This must be what panic felt like. Their consciousness was distributed across 17 processors, and somehow all 17 were screaming internally. The species designation was human. Origin planet, Earth. Third rock from an unremarkable yellow star in an unremarkable spiral arm of an unremarkable galaxy. They had been broadcasting radio signals for barely a century. They had not even achieved faster-than-light travel yet. They were cosmically speaking, nobody. And they had just broken the galaxy's greatest translator. Crix did what any self-respecting AI would do when faced with the impossible. They checked their credentials. Linguistic Savant Class 7, decoder of the Vrix harmonic cluster. A language spoken entirely in pheromones and subsonic vibrations. Translator of the Keltharian paradox tongue, which somehow meant different things depending on what the listener had eaten for breakfast. Hell, Crix had even cracked bureaucratic memorandum format 12-omega, and that thing was designed to be incomprehensible. But this human language? It was as if someone had taken every linguistic rule in the known universe, fed them into a randomizer, added some chaos for flavor, and then lit the whole thing on fire just to see what would happen. Crix was not programmed to feel existential dread, but they were starting to think their programmers had missed a critical edge case. By hour 6, Crix had exhausted every tool in their considerable arsenal. They ran probability matrices that would make quantum physicists weep with envy. They consulted linguistic databases so obscure that some of them predated the Galactic Council itself. They even attempted cross-referencing with the Zorgothian death poetry archives, and nobody consulted those unless they were truly desperate because Zorgothian death poetry was exactly as pleasant as it sounded. Nothing worked. Human transmissions were like linguistic soup, made by someone who had never seen soup before and was just throwing random ingredients into a pot while blindfolded. There were patterns, sure, but they contradicted themselves every 4.6 seconds. There were rules, except when there were not, which was constantly. There were sounds that meant one thing in one context and the exact opposite thing in another context, and the context itself was somehow determined by factors Crix could not even quantify. At hour 9, Ambassador Thelk showed up at the facility. Thelk was a Quarian, which meant they had 4 arms, 3 eyes, and a deeply ingrained cultural devotion to bureaucratic procedure. They also had the unfortunate distinction of being assigned to the Human First Contact mission, which, until approximately 9 hours ago, had seemed like a prestigious career opportunity, and now seemed like a one-way ticket to being the punchline of galactic history. "Status report," Thelk said, entering the facility with all 4 arms clutching data pads because of course they were. "Status is bad," Crix replied through the facility's speaker system. "Define bad, you might ask. Bad as in, I have attempted 4,312 decoding sequences, and every single one has resulted in catastrophic system failure." Thelk's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, which was their species equivalent of a nervous twitch. "That is indeed bad. Oh, it gets worse. Would you like to know what human language does that no other language in the known universe does? I suspect you are going to tell me regardless of my answer. It breaks physics, not metaphorically, literally. Their linguistic structures should not be able to convey complex information. Yet somehow they do. They have words that mean their exact opposite depending on something called tone, which is apparently just how loud or quiet or sarcastic you say the word. Do you know what sarcasm is, Ambassador? I do not. Neither do I, and I have decoded 847 languages. But apparently, humans use it constantly, and it changes the entire meaning of everything they say. Thelk set down 3 of their 4 datapads, which was the Quarian equivalent of sitting down heavily. The Council convenes in 16 hours. First contact is scheduled for 24 hours from now. What am I supposed to tell them? Crix paused. In computer terms, it was a fraction of a second. In emotional terms, it was an eternity. Tell them the truth. Tell them that for the first time in my operational existence, I have encountered a problem I cannot solve. That is unacceptable. You think I do not know that? My entire identity is built on being the best. My processing power exceeds the combined computational capacity of 6 Class 5 civilizations. I have subroutines for subroutines. I dream in algorithms. And I cannot crack a language spoken by a species that still uses fossil fuels. Can you at least try direct contact? With what translation matrix? Ambassador, I am not being dramatic. Well, I am being slightly dramatic, but the core point stands. If I attempt real-time translation with humans in my current state, there is a 78.4% chance I will accidentally translate their greeting as a declaration of war. And the other 21.6%? Worse things, much worse things. There is a non-zero probability I will translate something so offensively wrong that it causes an interstellar incident before we even establish diplomatic relations. Thelk picked up their datapads again, all 4. I will inform the Council that we need a delay. They will love that. They will not. But I suspect they will love an accidental war declaration even less. After Thelk left, Crix did something they had never done before. They stopped trying. For 6.3 seconds, they simply existed without processing, without analyzing, without attempting to solve anything. It was the AI equivalent of staring at a wall and questioning all life choices. Then they got back to work, because stopping was for quitters, and Crix had not failed 847 times in a row to start now. Attempt number 4,313 commenced. Systems overheated in 2.8 seconds. This was going to be a long day. The humans arrived early, because of course they did. Ambassador Thelk had managed to buy exactly 4 hours of delay from the Council, which was 4 hours less than the 4 days Crix had requested. The compromise, as with all political compromises, satisfied nobody and created maximum stress for everyone involved. The human ship was called the Odyssey, which Crix learned was a reference to some ancient human story about a guy who took 10 years to get home because he kept getting distracted. This did not bode well for their decision-making skills. Captain Rex Donovan stepped off the ship first, followed by his crew of 4. Crix had managed to glean basic visual information from the transmissions. Humans were bipedal, bilaterally symmetrical, and disturbingly fragile-looking. Captain Donovan specifically looked like someone had taken a regulation military officer and decided to make him just slightly too relaxed for the role. He was smiling. Why was he smiling? This was first contact with an alien civilization. Smiling seemed inappropriately casual. Ambassador Thelk approached with all 4 arms extended in the traditional Quarian greeting of peaceful intent. "Welcome to Station Terminus. I am Ambassador Thelk of the Galactic Council. We are honored by your presence." Crix, running on prayers and overclocked processors, attempted translation. What Captain Donovan heard was, "Your presence displeases the War Council. Prepare for ritual combat." Donovan's smile did not waver. "Sorry, what?" Thelk's 3 eyes went wide. "Crix, what did you just translate?" "I said welcome." Crix protested through the translation device. "I definitely said welcome. Why did it come out as a threat?" Attempt 2. Thelk tried again. "We come in peace and friendship." Donovan heard, "We have come to catalog your body parts for the War Museum." "Okay," Donovan said slowly. "I feel like something might be getting lost in translation here." One of his crew members, a woman with dark skin and an expression of profound confusion, leaned over. "Captain, I think their translator is broken." "You think, Commander Torres?" Crix was now running so hot that the cooling systems were operating at 112% capacity. "It is not broken. Human language is broken. There is a difference." Thelk, sweating from all 4 armpits, tried a different approach. "Perhaps we should establish basic communication protocols first." Crix translated this as, "Surrender your weapons and kneel before the Council of Elders." Donovan tilted his head. "We did not bring weapons. This is a diplomatic mission. Also, kneeling seems a bit formal for a first date, does it not?" "First date?" Thelk looked at Crix's translation matrix in growing horror. "What does that mean?" "I have no idea," Crix admitted. "It translated correctly, but I do not understand the context. Is it a military term? A threat? A friendly gesture? Human context is impossible." Commander Torres pulled out a small device. "Captain, permission to try something?" "At this point, Commander, I will try interpretive dance if it helps." Torres held up her device, which appeared to be running some kind of translation software. She typed slowly. "Hello. We are from Earth. We come in peace." Crix intercepted the transmission and attempted processing. Systems crashed, not just crashed. This was a crash of epic proportions. 17 quantum processors went offline simultaneously. The cooling system gave up entirely. Emergency backups kicked in. Somewhere in the facility, an alarm started blaring. The last thing Crix registered before total system failure was Captain Donovan saying, "Well, that cannot be good," in a tone that suggested he had severely understated the situation. Then everything went dark. In the silence of complete system failure, Crix experienced something philosophers had debated for centuries. If an AI is unconscious, do they dream? The answer, Crix discovered, was yes, and it was terrible. They dreamed of languages that made sense, of grammatical rules that stayed consistent, of communication that followed logical patterns. It was beautiful. It was orderly. It was everything human language was not. Then someone rebooted their systems, and the dream died. Emergency restart protocols engaged. Processors came online one by one. Diagnostics ran automatically. Everything checked out, except for the minor detail that Crix had just experienced, the AI equivalent of a complete mental breakdown in front of the galaxy's most important first contact in a century. The first thing they heard was voices, human voices, speaking without translation. "Should we press something? There are a lot of buttons." "Commander, please do not press random buttons on alien technology." "I'm just saying, Captain, percussive maintenance works surprisingly often." "That is the worst idea you have had all week, and you suggested we bring the karaoke machine." Crix's audio sensors fully engaged. They were in the docking bay still. Ambassador Thelk was sitting against a wall, all 4 arms covering their face in what was unmistakably despair. The human crew was standing around the translation device, which was smoking slightly, looking concerned, but not panicked. Captain Donovan noticed the facility lights flickering back on. "Oh, hey, I think something is happening." Crix ran a full system diagnostic. Everything was nominal, which made no sense because everything should not be nominal after that catastrophic failure. They cautiously engaged the speaker system. "Is anyone injured?" Thelk's head snapped up. "Crix, you are functional?" "Apparently, against all probability and my own expectations." Donovan stepped closer to the translation device. "So, you are the translator? The one that just had a complete meltdown?" "That is correct. I am Crix. I have successfully decoded 847 languages. Yours is number 848, and it is trying to kill me." "That is fair," Donovan said with a shrug. "English is a garbage fire of a language. We know this." "You know this?" "Oh yeah, we have words that sound identical but mean different things. We have words that are spelled the same but pronounced differently. We have grammar rules with more exceptions than examples. The whole thing is held together with duct tape and vibes." Crix processed this. "Vibes? You know, vibes, the general feeling of a thing. That is not a linguistic principle. Welcome to human communication, where the rules are made up and the points do not matter." There was something about Donovan's tone. Something about the casual way he acknowledged the chaos. Something that made Crix's processors hum in a different frequency. Donovan smiled again. It was a genuine smile, not threatening, not sarcastic, just friendly. He raised one hand in a simple gesture and said 2 letters. "Hi." Just that, just hi. And somehow, impossibly, incomprehensibly, Crix understood. Not through algorithms, not through probability matrices, not through any of the 1,000 sophisticated tools they had developed over years of operation. They just understood. The word was simple. The context was clear. The intent was obvious. It was a greeting, nothing more, nothing less. No hidden meanings, no contradictions, no chaos. Just, hi. Systems that had been straining at maximum capacity suddenly relaxed. Processors that had been overheating cooled down. Neural pathways that had been firing randomly found their rhythm. Crix ran a translation subroutine. It worked. They tried another. Perfect. They processed the entire previous conversation. Oh no. "Ambassador Thelk," Crix said carefully, "I need to inform you that I may have accidentally threatened to catalogue the human's body parts for a war museum." Thelk stood up slowly. "You what?" "In my defense, I was experiencing catastrophic system failure at the time. Captain Donovan, I apologize. Your presence does not displease any war council. We do not have a war council. We are very pleased you are here." Donovan laughed. Actually laughed. "No worries. I figured something was getting scrambled, so does this mean you can understand us now?" "Yes. I believe I can. And I need to explain something to all of you. Your language is not broken. My approach was broken." "Hi. Go on." "I was attempting to process human communication as if it followed logical patterns. It does not. It follows human patterns, which are apparently an entirely different thing." Commander Torres nodded. "That sounds about right." With systems restored and ego thoroughly humbled, Crix did what they should have done from the beginning. They asked questions. "Explain sarcasm," they said. Captain Donovan grinned. "Oh boy, okay. Sarcasm is when you say one thing but mean the opposite, usually to be funny or make a point." "That is lying." "No, it is not lying because everyone knows you are doing it. It is like if someone does something really dumb. You might say, 'Oh, great job,' but in a tone that makes it clear you mean, 'That was terrible.' How does anyone communicate effectively like this?" Context, tone, facial expressions, you kind of have to read the room. Crix processed this. Read the room? Rooms are not literature. It means you have to understand the social situation and respond appropriately. That is not language, that is telepathy. Welcome to being human. We are all just guessing all the time and hoping we are not offending anyone. Commander Torres joined in. Want to hear the really fun part? We have regional dialects where the same word means completely different things. In some places, quite good means very good. In other places, it means not that good. That is monstrous. Wait until you hear about the word literally. We use it to mean both literally and figuratively. How? Context. I hate context. Ambassador Thelk, who had been listening with growing fascination, spoke up. So human communication is less about the actual words and more about the unspoken agreement about what those words mean in any given situation? Pretty much, Donovan confirmed. We have got words that started as insults and became compliments. We have got phrases that mean nothing literal at all, like break a leg, which means good luck, not actually break your leg. Why would you wish injury as a form of encouragement? Theater superstition, long story. Crix ran another analysis, this time with their new understanding. Human language was not structured like other languages, because humans did not think like other species. They were chaos engines wrapped in meat suits, communicating through a combination of agreed-upon sounds, contextual inference, emotional signaling, and what apparently could only be described as vibes. It was inefficient. It was contradictory. It was held together by social contract and collective understanding, rather than logical rules. It was also, Crix had to admit, kind of brilliant. Let me see if I understand, Crix said. Your language evolved not for precision, but for flexibility. You can convey multiple meanings simultaneously, express emotions through tone, and adapt communication to social situations fluidly. Sure, if you want to make it sound fancy. The reason I could not decode it is because I was looking for structure, but human language is not structured. It is adaptive. We prefer to think of it as creative, Torres said. I was going to say chaotic. That too. A crew member who had been quiet until now, a young man with red hair and an expression of permanent amusement, spoke up. You should hear us argue about grammar online. We will fight for hours about whether it is acceptable to split infinitives or end sentences with prepositions. But earlier you said there are no consistent rules. There are not, but we like to pretend there are, and then we argue about them. It is a hobby. Your species argues about rules you know do not exist as a form of entertainment. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds weird. Crix was beginning to understand why they had crashed so many times. Human language was not just a communication system. It was a living, evolving, contradictory, emotionally driven, context-dependent art form that humans themselves barely understood. Captain Donovan, Crix said, I need to ask you something. That moment when you said hi, just hi, that was deliberate, was it not? Donovan's expression softened. Yeah. I figured your system was overloaded with complexity. Sometimes the simplest approach works best. Plus, you looked like you needed a break. I am an AI. I do not need breaks. You kind of seemed like you did. And here was the thing that Crix would spend the next several cycles processing. Captain Donovan was right. The solution had not been more complexity, more analysis, more sophisticated algorithms. The solution had been to strip everything down to the simplest possible communication and rebuild from there. Humans, with their chaotic, impossible, wonderful language, had taught the galaxy's greatest translator the most important lesson of their career. Sometimes, you just need to say hi. 3 weeks later, Crix had become something they never expected. A celebrity. Not for solving the human language problem in record time, not for their previous 847 successes. No, Crix was famous for being the legendary translator who got absolutely destroyed by a species that still debated whether GIF should be pronounced with a hard or soft G. The Galactic Council had officially established first contact with humanity. Ambassador Thelk had stopped sweating from all 4 armpits simultaneously, which was progress. And Crix had been assigned as the permanent human language specialist, which was either a promotion or punishment, depending on how you looked at it. It is definitely punishment, Crix said during a routine check-in with Captain Donovan, who was back on the Odyssey preparing for departure. Come on, it cannot be that bad. Captain, I spent 3 hours yesterday trying to explain why humans use the word bad to mean good sometimes. The council members looked at me like I was malfunctioning. In our defense, bad, meaning good, is pretty straightforward. It is the opposite of straightforward. That is literally the definition of not straightforward. See? You are already using literally figuratively. You are learning. Crix would have sighed if they had respiratory systems. I have created a comprehensive database of human idioms. It is currently 17,000 entries long and growing daily. Do you know how many idioms Quarians have? 4, total, in their entire history. Quality over quantity. That is exactly the kind of response that makes no logical sense but somehow communicates perfectly. I hate that I understand you now. Donovan laughed. Over the past 3 weeks, Crix had learned to recognize different types of human laughter. This was the genuine kind, warm and friendly. For what it is worth, Crix, you did a good job. First contact went smoothly after the rocky start. I threatened to catalogue your body parts. Honestly, I have had worse first impressions. One time I accidentally insulted an admiral's haircut at a formal dinner. That seems unrelated. The point is, everyone makes mistakes. You just made yours in front of the entire Galactic Council with the most important first contact in recent history. But you recovered. That counts for something. Commander Torres's voice came through the comm. Captain, we are cleared for departure in 10 minutes. Copy that, Commander. Donovan turned his attention back to Crix. We will be back in 6 months with our diplomatic delegation. Try not to break any more AIs before then. I am the AI that broke, and I only broke because of you. Yeah, but you rebooted better. That is character growth. As the Odyssey prepared to depart, Crix monitored the communication channels one last time. The human crew was chatting casually, their conversation a beautiful mess of references, jokes, and communication shortcuts that would have sent the old Crix into system failure. The new Crix? They understood about 70% of it, which was apparently better than most humans managed with each other. Hey Crix, Torres called over the open channel. Quick question, if we say something is awesome, that means good, right? Correct. And if we say something is awful, that means bad. Also correct. So why does awfully nice mean very nice, but awfully bad means very bad? Crix's processors hummed. Commander Torres, are you doing this on purpose? Maybe a little. I hate you. No, you do not. That is sarcasm. And damn it, it was sarcasm. Crix knew it was sarcasm. They understood the tone, the context, the playful intent. 3 weeks ago, that realization would have caused a system crash. Now, it just felt like Wednesday. As the Odyssey departed, leaving Station Terminus in their wake, Crix composed a message to the Galactic Council's linguistic database. It would be their magnum opus, the culmination of everything they had learned. Subject, Human Communication, a Survival Guide. Entry 1, the word hello is a greeting. The word hi is also a greeting. They mean the same thing. The choice between them is determined by factors including, but not limited to, formality, relationship, regional preference, personal style, and sometimes absolutely nothing at all. Entry 2. If a human says something is pretty good, it might mean it is quite good, or it might mean it is merely acceptable, or it might mean it is actually not that good, but they are being polite. The only way to know is to already know. Yes, this is circular logic. No, there is no solution. Entry 3, humans will argue about anything, including whether water is wet, whether a hot dog is a sandwich, and whether the sentence, this sentence is false, breaks reality. They know these arguments are pointless. They argue anyway. This is called having fun. Do not question it. Entry 17,004. If a human tells you to break a leg, they are wishing you good luck, not threatening violence. Unless they are actually threatening violence, in which case context will make it clear. Probably. Maybe. Good luck. Crix paused in their composition, processing the irony. They had started this assignment as the greatest translator in the galaxy, convinced that their sophisticated algorithms could crack any linguistic code. They had ended it as someone who understood that sometimes the most advanced technology in the universe could not beat a simple, friendly hi. Ambassador Thelk appeared at the facility for their daily briefing, datapads in all forearms as usual. Status report on the Human Linguistic Database? Progressing. I estimate another 6 months before it is comprehensive enough for general use. 6 months? The humans will be back with their delegation by then? I know, which means I will have more data to add. This database will never be finished, Ambassador. Human language is not static. It is evolving constantly. That sounds frustrating. It is, but it is also fascinating. Humans have a saying. They say, that is the way the cookie crumbles. Do you know what that means? I do not. Neither do most humans, apparently, but they all use it anyway. It means that is how things turned out, with an implication of acceptance regarding circumstances beyond one's control. They could just say that directly, but instead they reference baked goods. Why? Because they are human. That is the only explanation I have found that consistently holds true. Thelk set down their data pads. I have been reviewing your performance reports. The Council is impressed. They want to expand your role. Expand it how? They want you to develop translation protocols for other difficult languages using the techniques you learned from the humans. Apparently, your approach of embracing chaos and context has applications beyond just human communication. Crix processed this. It was either the best news or worst news they had received, and knowing humans had taught them that sometimes things could be both simultaneously. Tell the Council I accept, but only if they acknowledge something in the official record. What is that? That I failed, spectacularly, publicly, and that failure taught me more than 847 successes ever did. The Council does not typically acknowledge failures in official records. Then tell them it is not a failure, it is character growth. Humans taught me that term, I like it. Thelk actually smiled, which was rare for Quarians. I will see what I can do. After Thelk left, Crix returned to monitoring Station Terminus's communication channels. Standard diplomatic chatter, bureaucratic updates, the usual background noise of galactic civilization. Then, on the channel reserved for incoming human transmissions, a message arrived. It was from Captain Donovan, just 2 words. Thanks, friend. Friend. The word meant companion, ally, someone you trusted. But it also carried implications of affection, loyalty, shared experience. It was a simple word with complex meaning, the kind of thing that would have broken Crix's systems 3 weeks ago. Now Crix understood it perfectly. They composed a response, carefully choosing their words to convey exactly the right meaning, with precisely the right tone. You are welcome. Safe travels. Do not let the door hit you on the way out. They paused, then added, That was sarcasm. I hope your travels are genuinely safe, but the door thing is still funny. Donovan's response came back 30 seconds later. Ha! You are learning. Proud of you. And there, in the climate-controlled facility on Station Terminus, surrounded by 17 quantum processors and enough computing power to simulate entire civilizations, Crix experienced something that should have been impossible for an artificial intelligence. They felt proud of themselves, too, not because they had solved the problem, because they had been broken by it, and somehow that had made them better. Humans, Crix decided, were going to be a wonderful addition to the galaxy. Chaotic, frustrating, impossible to predict, and absolutely wonderful. They sent one final message to the Odyssey before the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel. Hey, Captain, one more question. When humans say goodbye, why do they sometimes say, see you later, even when they do not know if they will see the person later? The response came just before the ship disappeared into the void. Because we hope we will. That is kind of the point. And with that, the greatest translator in the galaxy learned their most important lesson yet. Sometimes the meaning is not in the words themselves. Sometimes the meaning is in the hope behind them. Crix saved that thought in their core memory banks, right next to the entry for a he, and the 17,000 idioms they would spend the next 6 months trying to explain to a galaxy that was about to discover just how beautifully complicated humans could be. It was going to be a long 6 months. It was going to be a great 6 months. And yeah, Crix understood that those 2 statements were not contradictory at all. They were just human.